Hi, my name is Sarah Evans, and I am currently studying a Bachelor of Advertising, and I'm going to be talking to you today about Chapter 3 of John Fisk's Introduction to Communication Studies. So, Chapter 3 is titled Communication, Meaning, and Signs, and unlike other chapters which focus on the process of communication, Chapter 3 heavily centers around how we, the decoders, find meaning behind communication. So, in this discussion, I'm going to be focusing on the different models of meaning, and these were created by Ferdinand de Saussure and Charles Sanders Peirce. So, I found when reading this chapter, Fisk jumped between the two models a lot in trying to break down the models of meaning. So, I'm going to then myself break down each model separately, so that way it's a little easier to distinguish between the two. So, in order to gain a broader understanding of signs, we have to understand that in order for communication to take place, we have to make a message out of signs. And the study of signs is called semiology. So signs can be anything. They can be words, objects, lights, sounds, anything really. And semiology is a human construct. So it's what we have created in order to communicate to each other. And it can only be understood within the context it is meant for. So a bad example of this, sorry, it's my own example, would be if I was in Threadbare and told you I was going outside to tan, it wouldn't necessarily make sense because it's not in the correct context. So Ferdinand de Saussure was a Swiss linguist born in 1857 and was credited for co-founding the field of structural linguistics. However, he focused more on structural meaning. His belief was that the meaning of signs could be found through a binary system, which is two things, the signifier and the signified. And in my blog post, I've added a diagram that clearly outlines this binary system. So, the signifier is the sounds and letters that denotes what we are saying. For example, when I say the word chicken, that is the signifier, it is the sounds, it is the letters, it's the word that I'm saying to you. And the signified is the concept that we develop in our mind. So without even meaning to, you've already got an image of a chicken in your head, so that way you're understanding what I'm saying. So it kind of saves me, if I'm trying to have a conversation with you about a chicken, it saves me having to hold a physical chicken in order for you to understand what I'm talking about. So this is a two-cycle entity, and the relationship between the two is called signification. An example of signification would be when I press the word record on a camera. The sign, when invested with meaning, tells us the camera will commence recording. The word record on the camera being the signifier and the signified being the camera is now recording. The relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary, meaning that there is no natural reason behind it. And convention describes the function of arbitrary in signs. It is the social dimension of signs and is the agreement of appropriate uses and responses of the sign. So an example of convention would be the Red Cross in order to demonstrate either a hospital or a medical centre, nurses or doctors. We've all universally applied the meaning that it is for health, sickness. That's when we know if I've got a broken arm, that's how I know where to go no matter where I am. And another example of convention would be traffic lights, for example. So if we hadn't applied meaning to traffic lights, they would just be a red light, an orange light, and a green light. However, universally, we've applied context that the red light means stop. It means danger. It's the color of blood. We see red when we get angry, so it means stop. Amber is a color in the middle. You can't make from green and red. You can't make yellow. It's kind of in the middle. So it either have to be yellow or blue, when we don't use blue because blue is associated with emergency services. So that's why that's yellow, and that means stop, prepare to stop. And green means go, and that's kind of associated with kind of environment, happy, safe travels. So that's also how we've applied social dimensions to colours. And so Ferdinand also kind of came up with terminology in order to apply meaning to our language. So parole is the individual language spoken by an individual, and long is what is shared by the community. So synchrony and diachrony. Synchrony is a snapshot of language from any given period of time, and diachrony is the evolution of language. A paradigm is the words chosen to form a sentence, and syntagyme is the linear flow of the sentence. And all those help us understand meaning from what we are saying. So that's one model of meaning from signs, and the other is from Charles Sanders Peirce, and he was born in 1839, and he's an American scientist, logician, and philosopher. So unlike Saussure, Peirce identified a triangular relationship on how we perceive, understand, and communicate a sign in relation to the object it is referring to. So the triangular relationship includes the sign at the top, the object, and the interpretant. So this is an interconnected relationship, and it is demonstrated by the open-ended arrows in Figure 12 in Fiske's book. So a sign is a concept of an idea. When I say the word again, chicken, that is the sign. That's the concept of the idea. The object is what you then envision in your mind, and the interpretant is either yourself or whoever I'm talking to, who is understanding and kind of decoding what I'm saying. So again, the object is not, I'm not sure if I'm going to say it yet, but I'll say it anyway. So the object is not to be confused with the physical objects. That's called the referent. The object is purely what you envision in your mind. And so when this sign is understood, the individual is called the interpretant. So Peirce's critical point in the meaning of signs is that the interpretant calls upon their own experiences in order to gain a mental image of the signs. This is called the proper significant effect. So an example of this would be the one that Fiske uses. So when I say the word school, a wide majority of you will immediately be able to decode my message based upon your own preconceived experiences with school, therefore gaining meaning from the sign. So that's kind of Peirce's whole point, that we only gain meaning from signs from what we have experienced, whereas Ferdinand's saying that you have to have a signifier in order to have a signified. They kind of go two and two. So Peirce then divides signs into three things: symbol, icon, and index. So a symbol is connection, is a matter of convention. So again, the Red Cross, that would be a symbol because it's based upon what we, the community, have provided that meaning to have. An icon bears resemblance to its object. So if I was to get my phone up right now and I wanted to go to the calendars, I would see that there is a calendar looking icon, and I'd know that's where to go. So an index is a direct existential connection to its object. So if I was to come home from work and see smoke rising from my house and I didn't have a fireplace, I would immediately know that there is a fire in my house. And so that would be the object. So that's kind of how he divides his three signs. And I've added a video in my blog post that kind of elaborates a bit more between the differences and kind of goes into it a little bit in a little bit more depth than I have, and I'd highly recommend having a look at that. And I hope that I've cleared up the difference between the two models. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.